It's belated, but Happy New Year to all of you from my behalf. So my name is Chiranjeev. I'm extremely honored to host this panel discussion. I'm a faculty member in this department, in Department of Computer Science at IISc. So the panel is named Accelerating AI Innovation. But the idea is to discuss the global trajectory of how AI technologies are evolving and what would be India's role in this governing this interesting evolution. So I have made some opening remarks. So I feel a little bit nervous about this because I'm a technologist. I have no idea about economics. But still, I was preparing for this. And so here are some thoughts which comes to my mind. So today, when I talk to some of my colleagues in the economics and other disciplines, so I hear that India today is globally the 5th largest economy. And if we take into account purchasing power parity, it is the 3rd largest. By all projections, this share is only going to grow, especially in the next 10 years. Now, if you look at the world economy, significant portion of the world economy is shaped by AI innovations, especially those sectors which are based on digital economy. Now, AI is a powerful driving force in shaping the future of digital economy for sure, right? Especially in those fields which require, interacting with data and making decisions at short timescales, for example, social media. Now, as per estimates from METI, whose secretary is here, Mr. Krishnan, see, by 2030, it's projected that India's digital economy will be at least 20% of India's GDP, 1/5. Now, try to imagine that if India's role in the world is going to grow, what impact it will have on the world. So it is just clear that India's digital economy grows, India's role will also grow at the world stage. And the coming decade, this growth will be much powered by our role in shaping AI policies and governances. And that brings to the importance of this panel, right? Now, of course, beyond digital economy, AI also is a much more potent force. It's already recognized that's a key enabler in fighting some of the toughest problems facing humanity today. Climate change, healthcare, education, housing. In all areas, if you look at the UN Charter, there's already discussion that AI can play a transformative role. Now, see, recognizing this pivotal role of AI, I think India government launched AI for India 2030 initiative. It lays down a sort of a structured plan. It was championed by Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, and it creates a blueprint discusses issues on how to leverage AI not only to drive business, but create more jobs, drive socio-economic inclusion, and by and large position India as a leader in global AI governance issues. Now, at this point, I'd like to inform you that we can't have a better panel than this. We're extremely fortunate to have several distinguished panelists who can weigh in on this topic. So let me call on first Shri S. Krishnan, Secretary METI. I would request you to give him a round of applause as he makes his way on stage. So he's a key architect behind this AI for India 2030 initiative. And you can't have a better person than him discussing issues for accelerating AI innovation. So he's a career civil servant. Please, sir. He's a career civil servant working in the intersection of technology and policy. So next, I invite His Excellency Arthur Barichard. So he's a Deputy Ambassador, Ministry of Europe and Foreign Affairs. And I was discussing with him about his role in various policy interventions, and he is one of the key architects of AI Action Summit, which is happening in February 10th and 11th, and all of us are invited, right? Yes. So next, I call on Srimati Lakshmi Shenoy. She's Managing Director, leads AI data and AI practice in Accenture. So serving in the industry for 20 years, he brings in vast outside perspective working with global clients in AI space. Next, I call on Dr. Leah Zhang. She is a senior researcher at the Global Center of AI Governance in Cape Town, South Africa. So she's trained as a social anthropologist, but her focus lies on human-technology interactions which relate to broader societal changes. And lastly, I call on Sri Bishwajit Das. He's head data and AI, Amazon AWS. His charter is help builders and organizations leverage data and AI to build a better India. That's literally his charter, and he told me so. I'm not misrepresenting him. So see, we cannot have a better panel than this. So what we thought, we will have the following structure. We will have some opening comments from each of the panelists, where they can weigh in specific instances of interventions which speak to the theme of accelerating AI innovation. And then after that, we would like to hear from them what challenges they foresee in accelerating AI innovation, especially which addresses not only business, but SDG goals to help us as a citizenship. And lastly, we would like to end the session with some policy prescriptions from all of them. So this would be the goal, and if we have more time left, we will invite questions from the audience. So let's get started. So we will go in this order. So maybe since I talked about India AI 2030 initiative, maybe I request Sri Krishnan to tell us to make his opening comments.
Thank you very much, Professor Chiranjeev and fellow panelists and very eminent people in the audience. I think the one thing which is sure about AI is that nothing you said yesterday probably is 100% true today. And we learn almost every day, and there is something new which comes up every day, which means definitely for us who are part of policy making, we have to be really nimble and flexible and make sure that we keep adapting to the changes as they happen and keep looking at what needs to happen there. But the potential of AI is something which all of us understand well, and to the extent that I recall about a year ago, the first Deputy Managing Director of the IMF, Geeta Gopinath, who was on a similar panel with me, pointed out that at least as far as the IMF is concerned, the potential of AI is almost the same as a horizontal revolution, similar to the first industrial revolution of the 19th century. So that is the extent to which things can change. And especially for countries of the global south and a country like India, the possibility of actually leapfrogging multiple stages of growth and becoming a developed nation on the back of technology is critical. And which is one reason why the level of ambition of the government of India on what it needs to do with in the AI space kept going up. And clearly we also recognize that this is a space where government effort alone is not adequate. There's a lot of effort that needs to come from the private sector, from industry, from academia, and everybody else. And all of that needs to be harnessed in a sense to go where we need to go. Our own India AI mission, which followed up on an earlier smaller effort on a national AI policy, is about $1.25 billion, but that is purely only government money that needs to be spent. And as government money, it's fairly substantial. What it triggers and what it brings in is a lot of private sector money and a lot of other resources which come in. Everyone is now talking about the $500 billion which was announced immediately after the inauguration of the new US administration. But the one thing that you need to note there is that is not $500 billion to be invested only in the United States. It's money which is going to be invested everywhere. Because one of the key elements there is that you need to have adequate sources of power to actually put in the data centers and the AI compute across the world. And you already have large technology companies talking to a number of countries, including India. We've had practically every major company visit India, whether it is NVIDIA's CEO, whether it is CEO of Microsoft, whether it is people from Google, and every major company has come into India. They have clearly indicated what their levels of investment are. And interestingly enough, India is also engaging on the international fora. Both, of course, there is the next AI Action Summit to be held in Paris early in February, but even prior to that, the various other events which have been held, and the GPay, which we chaired last year, and also as part of the G20 initiative, what we have done in the AI space. And likewise, as part of what the UN is also attempting to do through the Global Digital Compact and so on. To the extent that even to the UN Undersecretary General, we've given an indication that, based on our India AI mission efforts, where we've just opened our financial bids on how the compute will be provided by various private companies, and close to 20,000 GPUs worth of compute will initially get created, and this will keep getting added. That is the structure of our compute bid. If there is spare capacity, we are willing to spare for the rest of the country as well, rest of the world as well, especially for the global south. That's one part of the way we contribute. The second key contribution that we can make is in terms of human resources. The Stanford Index indicates that India is one of the countries which is best prepared for an AI transition amongst people who are in the STEM space. And clearly, this is a human resource, and in some ways, people equate this to the Y2K moment where many software companies from India could actually work towards providing solutions for the rest of the globe. Likewise, I think in terms of building AI applications and doing what it needs to do for how AI can actually be used for the rest of the world is something that India, I think, is well poised to look at. Now, all of this implies that right from the word go, we've looked at AI innovation as an opportunity and how we sort of need to push forward in this space so that we are able to reap the benefits of it and ensure that we cooperate with the rest of the world in terms of how the best comes out of it, and clearly also protect against whatever could be the potential harms and whatever could be the potential downsides which AI could bring. And that has also been a focus. The principal scientific advisor here chaired a committee which gave us a set of guidelines on how AI governance needs to take off, which is a document which is out for public consultation now. So we are taking the governance aspect seriously as well in terms of how we build around it. So we see the growth in AI as not just a government-led effort, but involving everybody, involving the private sector, involving the large companies, involving startups, involving academia, and also it's a global effort where we need to collaborate with a range of participants. This is the way we see it playing out.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's good. One thing comes out is that the holistic approach the ministry is taking and shaping this agenda is very wholesome. And one of the things you said is that the importance of AI Action Summit, and I think our next colleague, His Excellency Arthur, was probably one of the key architects of that mission. So Arthur, your opening comments.
Thank you for the transition. Hello everyone, my name is Arthur Barisha. I'm deputy to the French ambassador for digital affairs and really happy to be here. So our role within what we call digital diplomacy is very broad. The key issues that we are tackling are ranging from cybersecurity negotiations to tackling online disinformation, supporting our tech ecosystems, internet governance. But for the last couple of years, it has been mainly AI, which is no surprise to you. And AI is, in addition, not a new priority for France. We had been working on a national strategy since 2018. We have a strong ecosystem of more than 600 AI startups, a few unicorns, supercalculators, talents. So many points of convergence with India regarding this. And in France and in Europe, we often use the expression third way, trying to find a path between California and China. And I think regarding to this, even if it's not the same words, we're really aligned with India. And you mentioned India, which was about to leapfrog, hopefully, and actually everyone needs India to leapfrog, such as we need France to step up on the AI landscape, because from a customer's point of view, you need diversity within the landscape so that the AI market is not too concentrated in the hands of a few private players. So this is great to see that there are companies everywhere in the world rising on AI. In Japan, for instance, with Second AI, in Europe, and in India too. And in this regard, we are indeed organizing the AI Action Summit in Paris in February, 10th and 11th. India will be the co-president of this summit, and Prime Minister Modi will be here with President Macron. In a nutshell, what we are trying to do with this summit is to broaden the scope of issues we want to tackle regarding AI. We think that the previous international conference on AI focused a little bit too much on safety issues, and it's very interesting. You mentioned AI as an opportunity before mentioning the potential harms and risks. And it's interesting, and because a year ago, when you hold an international seminar or meeting or conference on AI, you always put safety and risk first. And when you travel, and we traveled a lot to prepare for the summit, and when you go, for instance, to Senegal, and you meet all the actors, they don't mention risk at all. They mention data, they mention talents, the opportunities. So we want to broaden the scope, and there are 5 broad priorities for this summit. First one being building a trustful AI. Second one, building robust ecosystems. Then working on the AI global governance framework, and we're working very well. And I say hi to IISc Singh here on this track. Fourth one, AI in the future of work. And last but not least, working on building AI for the public interest. And I might stop here for now.
Excellent. So I think all these 5 things you mentioned are also on India's radar. I think we see advertisements from IISc Singh's ministry about building trustworthy AI and things like that. So it's nice to see this collaboration shaping up well. Next, we call on Srimati Lakshmi Shenoy. She's, as I said, Managing Director, leads the Data and AI practice. So, Madam, what's your opening comments?
Thanks, Chiru. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be a part of this platform, which is a very esteemed dais. From where I see what AI has done to all of our lives is it significantly changed how we do businesses with our clients from an industry perspective. It's changed how we do consulting with our clients. It's changed how technology touch points have been with our clients. It's changed our operations and the way we do operations with our clients. It's also changed how marketing service content is reaching our clients, right? It's changed the entire ecospace of how our service offerings are going back to our clients. It's not just that, it's also changed how we at Accenture do our own business functions, right? Our HR functions, our marketing functions, our corporate functions. We had to rethink, redesign, and reinvent of how we do our work with embedding AI in everything that we do. Had we not done this, I think we would have been lagging behind. And as an industry, while we do all of this, it's important for us to see how ethical we are. And I think a lot of it has been said. But I must say that AI is so fast evolving. It's such a big buzzword right now. I would say the genie is already out, and we are chasing behind it to understand what are the policy and regulations that we have to do. Because if not done right, AI has the potential to disrupt vastly in positive and negative directions. So ethical and responsible AI become fundamental to how we look at AI, is what I would say.
Thank you. I think this is a very important point about ethical and responsible AI. So let's have here opening comments from Dr. Leah.
Yeah, ethical AI is actually a good segue to my perspective, which is, I'm a social scientist, as you introduced me as, and so I come very much from this perspective and from the perspective of what technology actually means for people in their everyday lives. How can they be of value? How might they actually do a lot of harm? And I come from an organization that is based in Africa, so we do a lot of work in Africa, but also elsewhere. So this is where my perspective comes from. And it's a good opportunity for me to speak a little bit about the projects that we worked with, because they're quite unique and how they use AI and generative AI specifically in Africa, but also in South America and in Asia, to develop very context-specific applications catering to local languages, but also being very sensitive about what people's needs are. To give you a few examples, there's an application that was developed to cater to young women in a slum in Mumbai, to convey sexual and reproductive health information that they otherwise might need to feel too stigmatized to go and seek out that information, which is obviously very sensitive. So you have to make sure that really to get this right. And not just the language part, but also how people speak. They might use a lot of metaphorical language, for example. Another example is the use of chatbots in Brazil to support the victims of gender-based violence, providing them again with information, but also linking them with experts in health and law to support them. And for that, we realized that it's also really crucial to establish a basis of trust, and I think I've heard that keyword before, because the notion was, okay, people come into our space and tell us how to do things through technology, and so without establishing a rapport and trust, this technology is most likely not even going to be picked up. A last example I will give is in Malawi, the use of generative AI to produce children's books in the local language, and also creating images that reflect local realities and things that children locally can really aspire to as well. And so I think it's important to mention these, even though there might be niche at this point. These kinds of applications, I think they allow for, it's a step away from the dependency that exists, especially in Africa, on foreign data and foreign technologies that are usually just copied and pasted, or often copied and pasted onto contexts. And that comes with a lot of risk. It's often done in the name of social good, but yeah, they come with a lot of assumptions, they come with a lot of bias, so it's likely that they often do more harm than good. So these, yeah, starting with the question of what do people, on the ground actually need and want, is really, it's a different way of going about it, and an important one. What stood out really working with these organizations, so we supported them, linking them with experts, supporting them in publishing, and what stood out was really also a thirst for a platform or platforms for exchanging knowledge, so across these different places, really sharing their insights, and I just really want to make that point. It's worth supporting these knowledge exchange platforms, especially in contexts where these technologies are still very novel, and where lessons are being learned that we can all benefit from, and that's.
I think most of his projects have relevance to India as well as some of your Mumbai and all that. I think the power of generative AI, that opportunity, especially in education, is under-leveraged, and great to see such projects coming up. I'm sure this will have a huge bearing for our country as well. And last, I go to Shri Vishwajit Das as Head Data and AI at Amazon AWS. Your opening comments.
So I think a large part of my entire outlook will be India-centric and India inside out, because I've spent my entire life in this country, worked in this country, studied. And a lot of it comes from recency. So yesterday we do something called the AI Conclave every year. We've been doing it for a few years, and I remember around 4 or 5 years back when we did it, we would have to strive really hard to get 200 people to come to that event. And most of those 200 people would be there for information and education, right? When we did it yesterday, we had 9,000 registrants, out of which we could only get 3,500 people into the venue. Almost everybody there was somebody who's aware, hands-on, and working with something on AI. And this is just one city in India, right? And that shows sort of the exponent. I wanted to pick something that Krishnanji said, right? This is the most crunched evolution cycle of a technology that I've ever seen in my entire life and career, specifically in the generative AI space. I mean, this is 18 years ago. You ask any analyst what is the next big thing for the next 12 months, generative AI wasn't in the top 10 list of any analyst anywhere in the world. It's just an 18-month-old, baby that everyone's come to know about, right? And the other thing that I loved was that we used to have and I've seen the startup ecosystem in India grow. We used to have startups which at one point of time would say, whatever they're doing in life doesn't matter. They're creating fast-moving apps, something to do with life science. They would say that and AI. That's that tag that you'd put to sort of get clickbaits and get investors interested. And now I meet a lot of startups which say AI and whatever they're doing for life. And that's real. It's not something that is slideware, as I call it. It's actual software. And just again, from recency, what I saw yesterday is largely businesses are using these technologies, specifically generative AI, in three ways, right? One is to say, what can we do to make experiences better? Doesn't matter who's my customers, my people, general public. And the second is to say, how can we make efficiency better? There are a lot of examples, you don't need to sit here. What I really liked was the third part, to say, how can we do experiments better? And these are things that we wouldn't have been able to do. And a good example, for example, maybe read up on this organization called Evolution Scale. A bunch of machine learning enthusiasts, they created this organization. They created possibly the first artificial fluorescent protein, right? It's only 58% similar to the next closest. But what's interesting is if we had let Mother Nature take its course, it would have taken 500 million years for this to be done. And we didn't have the ability to do this before, which obviously has ramifications in what we do with healthcare, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, that's a big part of what's interesting in this area, because I believe that the coming of age of any technology is when it actually impacts the lowest rung of Maslow's hierarchy, right? Roti kapda makan. And now we see AI actually make a massive scaled impact on that layer. I think that's what makes this exciting.
Thank you. So I think we just heard the opening comments on how various stakeholders here, the panelists here are engaged in various ways in seeing how AI is fostering innovation. So Mr. Krishnan talked about taking a holistic approach. It is not only business, about also not be so, you should also recognize AI as an opportunity. And most people talk about AI, they think about the risks first, and which is a stopping thing. So you have to nicely balance opportunity and risk, and Mr. Krishnan's team is working towards that and shaping up policies. We heard from His Excellency Arthur about AI at that policy summit, and where they are looking at global inclusivity of all. It shouldn't be concentrated in the hands of few, which is very, very important, especially for our country. We heard from Madam Lakshmi that how it's important to keep adapting and foreseeing the future to leverage the powers of AI. Dr. Leah mentioned several interesting things, projects which is for AI for social good, if you want to club them together, and how generative AI can be a huge potent force in education and things like that. Vishwajit mentioned that how there's exponential interest in using AI, especially generative AI. So all this bodes well. There's a great future ahead in AI, but again, maybe underlying theme of all of them is that do we have the correct policies? Do we have the right governance structures? I mean, these are good initial green shoots, but to translate into big trees, we will need policy decisions, and that's why the panel is. To that end, I would request the panelists to kindly comment on what you think are the key challenges. And then after that, we will try to discuss solutions for that. But in your opinion, what would be the key challenges? And I structured it as follows. There are some, basically it's all well known that AI has three challenges by and large: access to data, access to compute, and access to talent. This is a holistic thing everybody knows. But among the others in specific instances you want to weigh in, number one. Second, you also went in, this also, AI is one of those technologies which doesn't respect global boundaries. So are there challenges which are India specific or localized to maybe Europe or localized to Africa, but not there? So are the global challenges specific challenges? When we think about policy and governance, should we have one-size-fits-all regulation or should we have, oh, AI for healthcare, so we need to do something, or AI for education, so we need to do something. So I would like to hear the panelists weigh on some of these things or any other thing which you think useful to delineate some challenges. So maybe I will shift the order here. Why? Because I'm the moderator and I think luxuries. So I will now start with Madam Lakshmi to weigh in.
Thanks, Jiro. To me, fundamentally, there are a lot of challenges, but some of the prioritized challenges in my mind is definitely access to the data. Am I any better? Yeah. As Chiru mentioned, right? So access to the data, access to standardized, high-quality, diverse data still remains a challenge globally as well as within India, if you will, right? A couple other challenges that we are seeing right now is, if we talk about SDG goals, Krishnan, right? In terms of funding investment, there's also a continued momentum that is required from a long-term strategies on how do we look at SDG goals. Some of the other challenges that we've also seen in the industry, coming from the industry background, is scalability of AI solution, right? As Vishwajit, you said, right? It's been 18 months. Last year was a year of pilots and experiments, and I think we are embarking on a journey of doing large-scale implementations with AI, and we are not there yet. We are going through the journey, and every day is a new day for us. Every day is an evolution of how AI is transforming, and it's imperative for us to be able to catch up with the evolution and not stay stagnant, right? The other challenge that we have also had is around cultural erosion, if you will, right? A lot of these large-scale models that has been developed does have a global flavor to it. If it comes to India specifically, we have a very diverse socio-economic diversity. So the linguistic models that we need to embark, right? If some of you would have been following NVIDIA, they've been embarking on a journey of saying that, we need to have cultural models which will reduce the AI bias to what we deliver to a specific region or geography. So some of these are the challenges that we are seeing. There are many more, and I'll let others also talk about the rest of them. Some of them are around infrastructure gaps that we have had, right? Some of them are specifically for India, from rural areas, our uneven distribution of internet connectivity and our ability to get connected to the rural economy is also very crucial of how we start thinking about bringing in data that can help solve our problems in all the tiers of India. Right.
Thank you, Lakshmi. So the cultural sensitivity of the models is important, and as I think Dr. Leah mentioned, it can do more harm than good. So Leah, what would be your suggestions for, what do you think as key challenges?
Yeah, thank you. I'll speak again to those projects because we worked so closely with them, and we were very, we could witness almost in real time what challenges they were facing. All of them operating in contexts that are, I would say, resource poor in many ways, and where there's often a lack of human resources, especially in the context of healthcare in all of these projects. And so, yeah, there were different challenges. So one of them around compute, it was sometimes hard to estimate in advance what kind of costs would be coming because they hadn't worked with these technologies before. Cloud storage, for example, but also just the fine-tuning of data, and it was hard to say in advance to what extent data would have to be fine-tuned. And some of these projects built their large language models from scratch. Some of them used existing ones, fine-tuned them. So yeah, often they had to apply for extra grants to cover those costs. And that brings me also to the point of how the labor intensity that goes into actually fine-tuning these models and making them work in a context. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of human resources to do that. You need to, well, get an insight into what people need, translate that into the process, feeding that back into the technology fine-tuning process. And you need to have a lot of experts on hand. Is something I was quite astounded by the extent of that. So experts who would oversee this whole process and continuously make sure that this data is working. And yeah, so there's a lot of costs that should not be underestimated in that regard. The project leaders that we spoke to a lot were also often in a bit of a difficult situation because they were working in this context often for a long time and tried to address social challenges in different ways, not just with technology, but often through other means. And they would very clearly see the systemic challenges and gaps that there are. So they were often very torn between making a case for investing in a technology that is working properly and committing to that investment, and not losing track of the fact that we need to invest in human resources as well, and not think that these technologies will just solve this problem, because they won't, especially in healthcare. Yeah. So I think as you were saying, we had this pilot stage, and now that we get a lot more granular insight from people who are working on the ground, it's really important to listen to what people have experienced, not just the opportunities, but both the opportunities and the challenges, really, to make a measured sort of a good assessment of what is needed to use technologies in a good way as part of a repertoire of solutions. It's never the only solution. And in what instances technology is just perhaps not the solution at all.
Thank you. I think you made a very important point that AI is expensive. And that's why, as on an academic note, we ask for funding agencies to be a little more kind to us. But the important thing is, I think what we heard from Mr. Krishnan, that they are trying to get 20,000 GPU hours and things like that. So those are the steps we need to foster to cut down this cost. And depending on the geographies, these can be hugely exclusionary. Some sectors will not be able to, some villages won't be able to get access to these things, which is a shame. And I think, so steps like that need to be taken. But I think one part can be solved, cloud. And we have Amazon AWS sitting here. So hopefully we'll announce that free cloud services for all of us. Anyway, please.
So number one, I immediately felt like I was back in the classroom when you didn't know who the professor was going to pick next, just because it changed the order, right? And the second is cloud is almost free, right? See, almost, depends on how you look at it. So on this one, I think author said something, right? The author said when you had a conversation about AI 5 years back, the first thing on the agenda would be risk and governance. Today, the first thing on the agenda is opportunities. And I think AI also has a lot of opportunities on overcoming some of the major obstacles to SDG goals. I'm just keeping to the agenda, and I'll just off the top of my head, right? I know of multiple people who, in a private partnership, are working on stuff that is really, really making a difference. And for example, breast cancer is a menace. We all know it's a huge challenge. And in rural India, it becomes amplified simply because there are issues around diagnostic and people not just having access, but also being willing to actually go out and get them tested. So they've created this vest, which is a portable diagnostic agent where the Anganwadi workers, who actually any which ways visit the women in the villages, they would go, they would put it on, they would take a portable diagnostic, come back, download it, and you have, with some amount of accuracy, a predictive model which says, is there a risk of breast cancer? Should they get further tested, right? And again, I think this is optimal use of AI at the very individual level, to each unit. But if you look at a huge opportunity for India because of AI, despite all the, and I'm not, like you said, there are 3 large challenges to AI, right? Infra, which is both not just compute, it is energy, etc., etc. There is data and availability of safe, accessible, governed data, right? And the third is talent, and we will. But if you look at how India is poised right now, 2 things happened, not serendipitously, but 2 things happened. One is, in my opinion, the largest consumption of generative AI and AI will actually be in the embedded form. So they'll be embedded into something where you and I will use it without really consciously knowing we are using. Yeah, when you use a, I don't know, a ride hail or a food delivery service today or a map service today, do you really think about the, the humongous amount of tech that goes behind? You don't. It's convenience. That's why. And that's how we think it'll be used. And India today is the 3rd largest ISV player in the world. The most number of ISVs who are making in India to service the world. And AI is going to be embedded in them. So that, with the amount of talent we have in the country, I think we are uniquely poised to help other countries solve problems which we can do out of here because of what we have available. Right? I think, and that makes a lot of sense to actually push towards and say, can we look at how can we amplify these sort of solutions which are addressing an Indian at the individual level, as well as contributing to doing better with AI at the larger global scale.
Thank you. I think, as you are saying, we wanted to point out that one of the leading breast cancer for portable breast cancer diagnosis is done by one of our alumnus here. Niramai is the company name. I think is working. I think that's the company you're referring to, I guess, and I'm proud to say I'm a collaborator with her. Anyway, plug for me, sorry. But that's the potential AI has, and it can change the way we do healthcare, way we do education, and things like that. And if we can get the cost down, that's another challenge. May I come now to His Excellency Arthur? So, what do you think would be the key challenges facing that? What stops us from reaching the full potential of AI?
Thanks. On the questions of how to solve SDGs with AI, how AI can be an asset for the common good, I think there are 2 complementary approaches. And I think India is the right place to understand what I mean. The first one is, in France, we call it tech for good. Is how big companies, big actors can bring their tools and resources on the table to help other actors to improve their daily lives, to improve education, to improve health, etc. We have been doing this for quite some time now. It works to some extent, it has limits. And I think the other approach is key, it's AI for the public interest. But what I mean by that, and we've been traveling a lot with the French team to organize the summit, and every actor of AI in the world has come to the same conclusion. We want to be actors of the AI revolutions and not only customers. So we want to be able to have access to good set of data, to compute, to expertise. And I think this is another approach which is key. Another challenge that hasn't really been mentioned so far, I think, is having access to clean and cheap energy. It will be key, as you can imagine. And how can you do that? And I mean, in Paris, we will try to combine both approaches. On the first hand, we will showcase existing solutions from all around the world in order to tackle those challenges, and there will be Indian solutions, but also African solutions, American solutions, and French solutions, because this approach is actually a common one. It's shared everywhere. Of course, you hear a lot from emerging countries this will to be an actor for the AI revolution, but it's the same in France and in Europe, and we call it autonomous strategy. And you hear it in the US. It's the little tech agenda from the startups saying that they are big actors and we want to be part of it as well. So this is a really worldwide approach. And in Paris, we will both showcase existing solutions and launch an initiative in order to democratize the access to data, compute, and expertise. And hopefully, India will be part of it for it as well.
Thank you. This is, of course, this is the democratic. I think the last word you said, democratize access to AI. That is going to be key. So, as Mr. Krishnan mentioned in his opening comments, that this could be the Y2K moment for us and those opportunities. And so you heard all the challenges from other colleagues. What's your reflection on the challenges you think India?
No, I think one of the key challenges, the immediate one I can see is the infrastructure challenge. Both of them mentioned about access to energy and power. I think that is a very, very important challenge which we underestimate, and which requires a lot of planning and a lot of agencies coming in and making sure that adequate power of the right kind is available for what needs to be done. I think that's clearly a challenge. There's also the cultural challenge which was highlighted. And I think the issue that Africa faces is very similar to the issue that India itself faces in terms of large number of local cultures, large number of local languages, in which we are trying to address through Bhashini and a host of other initiatives which have worked in a significant way and which need to keep improving so that we are able to get where we need to. The third challenge that I foresee from an international angle is something which was highlighted by the French ambassador. Now, the issue there is that the concentration risks are very high, and both in terms of access to the infrastructure, access to the people who can actually build the AI models and who run them, and in terms of talent, and in terms of the money that can actually be spent on this area. And I think we need to be acutely conscious that neither should a country like India be left behind, and nor should the global south in general be left behind. And that becomes a very critical challenge which we need to address. We need to be conscious of, and we need to address. And that makes ethical AI and governance very central to the entire way, because that's again about democratization, decentralization, making sure that you have options in the way that it gets adapted to different parts of the world. So these, in my mind, while AI is a huge opportunity, and India needs to approach it with a positive mindset and not a mindset that we could get left behind. We can't start with that. We have to start on the front foot, assuming that we will actually succeed in what we intend to do, and we need to put our best foot forward in that sense. But having done that, we need to be acutely conscious of all of these challenges and how we get our act together to solve all of these challenges. For instance, I mentioned about international companies wanting to come into India. Indian companies are also trying to solve this problem. There are a number of companies who are now recognizing the power issue. Reliance has indicated that in Jamnagar they are setting up a capacity of 1 gigawatt, which will power the data center and the AI compute. Likewise, other companies are thinking about it. As we are thinking about clean energy, we need to be conscious that, and cheap energy, we need to be conscious that it's not 0 or 100. It is not a 0 or 1 issue. There are solutions in between here. We have a large number of gas-based power plants in the country which were set up, which sometimes don't have adequate demand. Now, could that be a location where you develop AI compute? At least it's maybe 50-60% cleaner than using thermal before you get to completely green power sources. Is that something that we can do? So these are the kind of solutions that need to be thought of, and these are the kind of solutions we need to work on to make sure that every part of the world gets ahead in AI and doesn't get left behind.
Thank you. I think this is a very fascinating point you brought out, and I realize now the foresight of the founding fathers of this institute. We also have an energy center which is maybe we need to work more closely together. But as he says, that's also alternate source energy is also important. Now, I think we are running out of time, so I'm sorry about this, but I would request all of you to suggest, if you were to suggest a prescription, or not prescription, a suggestion, a policy intervention which you wish to see, which will further the adoption, development, and impact of AI on the broader citizenship across the globe, and even India. Your thoughts? Maybe I'll start from Bishwajit, maybe.
We were all hoping you'd start from Krishnanji. We could just take our cues from him and do a
He gets the last word.
He gets. But sir, if you're okay, I'm going to borrow the Y2K moment thing from you. I'm going to use it because I think it's brilliant. And something else that he said, right? I think talent is one of the most important. Eventually, we'll find creative solutions to energy, to compute, to infra. Talent is something, and it's not just saying, let's kill another 20 million people. That's doable in India, right? And this is it's a collective responsibility. I think we have to be mindful of what we are, because unlike many other things that we have done before, including during Y2K, where we knew there are certain languages we need to train people, etc. This is slightly different. This has the potential to change and disrupt the skill matrix that we look at. And let me take an example, and bear with me for 30 seconds, right? Let's see, how will organizations, people, countries use generative AI? I think of it like an inverted pyramid. At the very top will be people who will use it, for lack of a better word, by prompt engineering. They'll interact with the UI. Slightly lower is folks who will go a little deeper and they'll say, I need contextual results out of whatever I'm doing. So can I use RAGs and vector and more complex ways in which I can actually get very contextual, niche answers to my question? And then a little lower will be folks who will say, listen, this doesn't work for me. Can I tweak these models a little bit? And then right at the bottom of the layer will be folks who will say, I need to create a new model, right? And the time, effort, and skill is inversely proportionate to this entire pyramid. So we need to train people for every bit of the pyramid. And the largest chunk is going to be at the top of the pyramid and then diminishing to the bottom. Why that also changes is the starting point for your skilling is different for each layer. What I need to become a brilliant prompt engineer is not what I need to become a model maker, LLM maker, right? And I think we should look at it very mindfully. Like I said, this is collective responsibility of how we can have everybody, not just India, but everybody grow better with AI in the world, right? And my two cents to it.
Thank you very much. I think this is a very important point you raised. May I have Dr. Leah's thoughts on what would be a policy prescription or suggestion?
Yeah. I think I'll go back to my first point that I made around knowledge exchange. I think governments can do a lot to support such initiatives of knowledge exchange. They can also support researchers in making data available for them to use. And support high-value open data sets that also enable smaller organizations and so on to work with them. Our organization worked on a global index on responsible AI, and it's the first that it works very closely with local hubs in different regions, including in India, and developed and refined a methodology working with these hubs. It covers 138 countries that have not, a lot of them have not really been covered before in that sense. And so what stood out there, and what I think needs attention, across the globe, is access to remedy and redress. We know that with these technological changes, the labor landscape changes, and that the people who are the most affected by this are women and people, people who are already marginalized in some form. For me, it's also really important then to think about critical digital literacy. It's something that I feel quite strongly about, because often people don't know what kind of So digital literacy, not in the sense that you know how to use the technology, but to know, what is good to be using it for, which, when it can be harmful, but also to know what your rights are and how to access them. The last point I would like to make is around gender, and that is something that is really, really neglected across the globe as part of these policies, AI policies, and that's really a problem. I think we need to really start, when we think about policies, start thinking through what this means for those who are the most likely to be marginalized by all of this.
Thank you. Very deep points. Lakshmi?
I think I'll add on to what Krishna was talking about, right? So if we were to look at policies and what we want to do, we want to look at AI as an enabler and not perhaps, the misuse of AI and then go around it, right? Because AI does a couple things, right? AI can augment humans. AI can also take away a lot of our repetitive jobs that we are currently doing. Let's acknowledge that, a lot of our repetitive jobs will soon be replaced by AI or Gen AI. But does that mean that we start making policies keeping that as a center? No, perhaps AI is here to flourish. So our policies should govern what are the do's and don'ts of AI that we could do, rather than, we start thinking about, let's talk about responsible AI, it's going to take away my job, 40% of the job is going to go away. That's perhaps one angle that I was thinking about. The other thing that I really think that we should also continue to do, and I think as a part of Krishna 2024 AI mission that we've had, I think some of these are already in place. But fundamentally, a continued funding and continued appreciation for researchers who are doing ethical AI deployments and developments becomes very, very key in my mind. The third thing is around skills. I think without skills, we're nowhere. Academia and industry, how we come together, and the sharing of knowledge and resources for us to enhance AI innovation capabilities becomes very, very key. India is the second largest in terms of AI skill set that we are delivering to the globe, and I think we should be immensely proud of it wherever we are sitting. But how we transform our talent, and in terms of not just our future talent, the talent that is there currently in the organization needs also an evolution, right? So skill and talent becomes another policy that we should really closely think about. Enterprise-ready talent that comes into the industry is also an important aspect, if you will, is where I'll close my comments.
Thank you. Thank you. May I come to you for your policy suggestions?
Yes, so I agree with everything what has been said. Two other ones. First, adoption. I think that India or France, they shouldn't fear of being left behind when speaking of AI, except if we miss the train of adoption. And for that, it is urgent to shift from science fiction to concrete use cases in order to everyone being able to use AI. Second one, global AI governance to be more inclusive. Today there are only 7 countries in the world which are in every major governance initiatives, and more than that there are 120 which are nowhere to be found. And that can't remain this way because it's a global issue that must be decided with everyone around the table.
Thank you. Yeah. So as I said, the last word goes to Krishna. So you have heard all the challenges, and what would be your suggestions?
No, quite honestly, I'm not going to respond to any of them, because I think all of them are valid. To some extent, they're covered in some of the policies and some of the efforts that we are taking. But I'd like to focus on 3 concrete things which I think will make a significant difference as action points. First, I think today we are sitting in the institution which is at the apex of India's educational system, rated time and again as the best institute in the country, undoubtedly. They do a lot of work on AI. I think what we need is that in every discipline, at the college level, at the university level, whether it is art history or whether it is civil engineering or whether it is anything. In every discipline, I think some awareness of what the potential of AI is and what AI can do to disrupt that particular area is a necessary part of what needs to be done in the educational space. Unfortunately, some of that mandate goes beyond what my ministry does, so that is on my wish list, and I think that's something which will answer some of the skilling questions. And starting all the way from school level, we have done something limited in the AI space, but I think it needs to be spread much more widely because it's a horizontal technology. The second thing which I think is really possible, and which is to what I have been working in for 35 years in the government, is India's government is a peculiar entity which everyone thinks it's bloated and so on, but when you compare with the rest of most countries, the number of civil servants we have or the number of people we have even at the cutting edge is far fewer than anywhere else. AI and use of AI within government probably represents the one opportunity we have to enhance the productivity of the government and governance systems considerably so that we can actually deliver the quality of services that our citizens need and deserve, and which I think historically we've fallen short of, and I think that is something that we must deliver and leverage AI to actually do it. Again, something which is very doable and within government. The third thing is that I think concrete use cases are very important. We spoke briefly about healthcare, we spoke briefly about education. But truly, if you look at it, and in the Indian context, in the manufacturing sector where the share in the economy has been dropping consistently, the extent to which AI can be applied, along with other technologies like IoT and so on and so forth, especially for the small and medium enterprises, I think is a huge opportunity, and that again requires a lot of coordinated effort across different spaces, and that is something which needs to be done and needs to be demonstrated, because that will have a significant impact on the quality of life and everything else of people, and make them competitive, make them productive, and then they can truly make a difference. And that's the one way in which you ultimately leapfrog. To me, I think these are three specific action points rather than broader policy issues. So I'd like to end there. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. We are short of time, at Prince, over time. So, I mean, as you can hear, as you heard from the panelists, very thoughtful suggestions. And of course, India is well poised to play a huge role in the global stage. But of course, all these policy decisions has to be actionized in a nice way. So I would like to thank the panelists for taking their time off. And I bothered them intermittently through emails and things like that. Thanks for being obliging. So I would request all of you to give them and I will now call Mr. Chagun for making some comments.
No, I just wanted to thank you because you won't thank yourself in the panel. And thank you so much for moderating such an excellent panel for us. And we are actually 10 minutes delayed in our actual schedule. So I'd request all of you to join us for the lunch in the main guest house. There are shuttles waiting for you and the cabs just below this building in the entrance. And then we'll regroup here at 2:10. So please be back by 2:10, and main guest house is also walk away, which is a very nice boulevard that you could explore, and have a nice lunch. See you at 2:10. Thank you.